Om Shanti and welcome to all the elevated souls in this training. So today we will discuss about the process of introspection. Quite a few of us would want to sit and introspect, but most of us are scared to do that because when we sit there to review ourselves or a situation, what comes in front of us is a lot of negativity. So what is the right way to introspect is what we will discuss in today's session. And as always, let's meditate for a couple of minutes before we get into the talking mode. Hope you're able to see my screen. Sit back, relax. You can sit back, relax, sit straight with your back well supported, both feet firmly on the ground. And if you're comfortable with closing eyes, you can close eyes, else you can keep your eyes open.
Experimenting with these exercises, one is able to discover the sweetness and the beauty that lies in knowing the self. The more I know myself, the more I'm able to maintain the awareness of my true identity and move away from all the different compartments and limitations that I have imposed on myself. The image that we generally have of ourselves is a fairly negative one, but that's simply because we don't know who we are. And so we allow external influences to restrict our thinking and put us into boxes and create bondages and feel the pain of those bondages. Meditation is the method of liberation, of becoming free from the false impositions that I have created for myself and I have accepted in terms of what the world has imposed. It is important to experiment with these ideas, sitting quietly, in solitude, in silence within. However, it is equally important to experiment with these concepts during our day-to-day activity. Having had a glimpse of the identity of the self, then, when it's time to leave my little corner of meditation and move into the world outside, I must learn to maintain this awareness of being a point of light, using the physical instrument to look out into the world, using the lips to express my thoughts and ideas, to communicate with others, being the master, listening to the information that I receive, but being the master, deciding, discerning what it is which has value, what it is that will enhance my own awareness, retaining that information, communicating that information, but also being able to filter out that which will pollute my mind, that which will cause my feelings to become corrupt, so that I maintain the integrity of this experience of eternal consciousness. Both things are aligned together. My time in silence, experiencing the eternity of the self, but using this awareness in my day-to-day activity. If through the day I maintain this awareness, then whenever there is a moment at which actions can finish, I can turn inwards and come to the state of Om Shanti, and the awareness of Om Shanti, the awareness of peace, is also then expressed through the work that I do during the day. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Gently come back and experience the chair on which you're sitting. And if you close your eyes, gently open your eyes. Om Shanti. Om means I am a soul. Aham Atma. Shanti means peaceful. So each time we say Om Shanti, it means we are reaffirming our peaceful nature and saying, I am a peaceful soul. What we learned yesterday, that I am a point of light in the middle of the forehead. I am a conscient being. I am a soul. And purity, bliss, knowledge, power, peace, happiness, and love are my innate qualities. And what is meditation? Meditation is an opportunity for me to experience my own inner beauty. That is, I move from position of weakness, thinking that I don't have any of these qualities, to a position of strength, accepting that I am an embodiment of these qualities. And we also learned the difference between body consciousness and soul consciousness. So when I think I am body, I compare and contrast. But when I start experiencing myself as a soul, I start accepting others as unique beings, equal yet different. Body consciousness divides and soul consciousness unites. When I think I am body, all my pursuit throughout the life becomes satisfying the desires of these five senses. But when I start looking at myself as a soul, I become the master of my senses. I become the creator. It's very important that we keep reminding ourselves, because the more we remind ourselves who I am, the easier it becomes for these qualities to emerge from within. And when we are aware of our eternal self, it becomes so much more easier for us to overcome a whole host of fears. And as promised yesterday, as we saw, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. One of the fundamental principles of Rajyoga. Whatever you are looking at will not change, but your perception of those will start changing. Because Rajyoga provides an alternate, empowering perspective which will help you start experiencing the life and the world around you in a more positive manner. And for that, I need to change the way I look at things so that the things that I have never seen inside me and others in the past, I start seeing them. So today, we are going to talk about the right way to introspect. Introspection has 3 steps. The first step is the pre-introspection ritual. In a minute, we will explore this in detail. Without this pre-introspection ritual, the next step of introspection will not succeed. Because when we start reviewing our performance, when we start speaking with ourselves, when we start introspecting, it's extremely important that we get into a state of mind that allows us to introspect properly. For most of us, we dread introspection or self-reflection because as soon as we sit there, we get a lot of waste thoughts. Either we are regretting our past or we are worried about our future. That is why most of us never do or never make time to sit and introspect. But today we will learn the right way to introspect. And once you do the introspection, the last and final step is post introspection. So we will explore this pre-introspection ritual in a lot more detail in today's session because that forms the foundation for the right way to introspect. Now, Rohit bhai, can you please unmute? And for those of you who are having a book or your own mobile phone in front of you, let's do this simple exercise. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's do this exercise to understand the difference between attachment, detachment, and dissociation. Because any spiritual path you take, any spiritual method that you follow, one of the first things that we are taught is detachment, which is the most misunderstood concept in spirituality. Today, I would like to clarify that so that it becomes easier for you to adopt it and utilize the benefits of the Rajyoga meditation. Yes. So, do you folks have any book in front of you on which something is written? So, can you start reading from that book? Start reading. And as you start reading, you can read silently. You don't have to read out, just read silently. And as you keep reading, please bring the book closer to your eyes. Just keep getting book closer to your eyes and so close that you close your face with that book or with that mobile. Now read. Try to read. In this position, try to read. I'm sure you are not able to read because for you to read, the book needs to be at a little distance. Now, why were you not able to read when you started bringing the book closer to your face or eyes? Go ahead, answer.
Because you can't see the contents.
Correct. You can't see the content. Why can't you see the content?
Because it is very near to
It is too close to our eyes.
Very good. If it is too close to our eyes, what is getting sacrificed?
Vision is getting blurred.
Vision is getting blurred means
We are not able to clearly see the object when it is too close
We
to
are
us.
not able to see the image that is in front of us.
very good. That means the
distance.
clarity suffers when the book is too close to you. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
And clarity improves when I have the appropriate distance between me and the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the clarity once again suffers if I take the book completely far away from me.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, if this is my situation, if the book you are holding is your situation, this is attachment. And this, when you hold it at the appropriate distance, you are still holding it. It is still your baby. It is still your situation. But you created the distance between yourself and your situation. This is detachment. And when you take the situation too far away, that is dissociation. Will not help. Running away from situation is not the answer. When I create this distance between me and my situation, which is the emotional distance, is what we call, this is what we call as detachment. Then you will be in a better position to start seeing the situation for what it is. Very important. I am still holding it. This is still my problem. This is still my situation. I only have to sort it. But now I start getting more clarity without getting emotionally attached to it. Because when I am attached, my brain gets into emotional mode where I am not able to see the things clearly. But when I detach, when I develop that emotional distance between me and my situation, then I am able to see the facts in the situation and slowly start designing the ways and means to handle it. Very important. Good, thank you. Let me share the screen again. Are you folks able to see my screen? Rohit?
Yes, Balabhai.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, let's take this conversation forward. How do we practice this detachment? Is there a tool? Is there a metaphor that I can use? So that tool is going to the balcony. Let me explain this with a little story. So there's this couple which wanted to go to a dance floor on a Saturday evening. Yes, this is pre-lockdown days when everything was fine and things were normal. So they wanted to go to the dance floor and then dance that weekend. But that weekend, being a holiday for most of the folks, the dance floor was full. There were other tables, there were quite a few of the people on the dance floor. So when they started dancing, the fellow dancers were stepping over the toes of this couple. The guy would say, boss, you are also enjoying your dance. I am also enjoying my dance. Why are you stepping over my toes? So they would say, sorry, sorry, move a little away. And then a few minutes later, once again, move close to this couple and then start stepping over their toes. When this happens a few times, they get frustrated and the guy says, honey, let's move out of the dance floor and let's get to the balcony. So they get to the balcony, and when they get to the balcony, what they see is a totally different picture. Because the dance floor was full on that day, as and when the dancers were moving towards the VIP enclosure, the security staff were pushing them. And whenever the security staff pushed them, they were stepping over each other's toes. Where was this visible from? From the dance floor or the balcony? Then the frustration they had once they saw this scene from the balcony disappeared because they were no longer blaming their fellow dancers. And this was visible only when they stopped dancing and they moved out of the dance floor and moved to the balcony. Even in our life, when we are trying to introspect, it is important for us to remember that introspection is not possible from the dance floor. You must stop dancing and you must move to the balcony if you want to understand the big picture. And what does going to the balcony do? What happens when you go to the balcony? When you go to the balcony, you become aware of the facts in the situation. Very, very, very important. Because on the dance floor, when you are dancing your way away, which is what most of us are busy all through our day in our life, and then you want to look for the facts, because from the dance floor your vision is very limited, you will see only certain set of facts, not all of them. But when you move to the balcony, you start becoming aware of the rest of the facts that you were not aware from the dance floor. And when you start seeing these rest of the facts, you will start appreciating the other's perspective. Very important. And the second thing that happens, which is really beautiful, is you become aware of the story you are telling yourself. In any situation, there are two components. One is the facts in the situation. The second is the story I tell myself based on those facts. And most of the time, limited number of facts because I am doing it from the dance floor. And my emotional reaction or the way I experience that situation more than 90% of the time is dependent on the story I am telling myself and not necessarily on the facts. Very important. So when I detach and move to the balcony, I can start becoming aware not only of the facts, but I can stop the unnecessary story I am telling myself because now I have a much bigger view of the floor. Very important. And how do I move to the balcony in any situation? Again, asking these two simple questions. What are the facts in the situation? What is the story I am telling myself? And the minute you become aware of your storytelling, you will start getting control over it. Because then you can modify it. Because you are the writer, director, creator, author, hero, heroine, villain producer of this story. So when you detach and move to the balcony, you can start becoming aware of this story. And then it becomes easier for you to start focusing on the facts. So moving to balcony, the metaphorical balcony, is very, very essential before you start your introspection or reflection exercise. And the second, once you move to the balcony, you need to switch off your projector. Very important. What that means, if you see here, there is about a 2-inch picture or a 4-inch picture on this mobile, which is getting projected onto a 4 feet or a 6 feet screen. Both are real because we are able to see both. It's not that only this picture is real and not the thing that is being projected on the screen. Both are real. But what is it that is making a 4-inch picture appear like a 4-foot or a 6-foot picture? It is the projector. And by default, our mind's projector is always on. The actual size of the situation might be only 4 inches. But because of my anxiety, because of my fears, when I switch on my projector, I make that 4 inches picture into 4 feet or 6 feet. It is not actually 6 feet, but it appears to be because my projector is on. So when I move to the balcony, I should consciously sit down and switch off my projector. Then when I start looking at the facts for what they are, I can slowly move out of my anxiety, and then my ability to handle the situation improves, because it is no longer 6 feet because I switched off my projector. It is only 4 inches. So a 4-inch situation is much easier to handle compared with a 6-foot situation. And I would encourage you to sit and reflect. What are all those situations in the past where your projector was on, you thought it was a 6-foot situation, but once the situation passed, you realized that it was actually a 4-inch situation and not a 4-foot or a 6-foot situation. So every time we get into any situation, make sure to check whether your projector is on or your projector is off. And the third important thing is sit on a blameless chair. Do not blame yourself. Do not blame your past. Do not blame anybody around you. Just for those few moments when you are in the balcony, switch off your projector, sit on the blameless chair, and then, only then, start looking at the facts in the situation. Very important. Because when we blame ourselves or when we blame others, we shift our focus from the task or the situation to the people. And when we switch our focus to the people, everything goes for a toss. Focus on the problem at hand. Focus on coming up with a solution to resolve the situation that is in front of you, not worrying about who made it, why did they make it at this point of time. Don't get into problem focused thinking. Get into solution focused thinking. Very important. Because when you start focusing on the people, you will lose sight of the facts in the situation, because your impressions, your conditioning, your experiences with those people, they will overwhelm your mind, and the mind is no longer concerned with the facts in the situation. Very important. So going to the balcony, switching off my projector, and sitting on a blameless chair, that is what we call as non-judgmental awareness. And that is what typically in our culture we call it as Sakshi Drashta Sthiti. That is, you are a Sakshi. You are detached. You are a witness. You are just and Drashta means you are seeing. So you are seeing the situation being detached from it. And that helps you to focus on the facts rather than label and start judging them. So this non-judgmental awareness is the key for us if we want to introspect the right way. For many of us, we are going through our year-end performance review season. Whenever you are reviewing the performance of the other person, it's very important that you adopt this non-judgmental awareness to be able to listen and accept what the team member in front of you is saying, so that you don't have to agree with their story or their viewpoint of their performance, but at least you will at least listen to them. And when you listen to them, the possibility of they listening to your version of their performance increases. So it's very important that even in our day-to-day life, we postpone our judgment while we are looking at the facts and we adopt this non-judgmental awareness. And why do we keep speaking about this judgment aspect as a part of our spiritual journey? Very important. Because when I think, I won't feel it just like that. But when I add my judgment to my thinking, only then it becomes my feeling. And when I get into the feeling mode, everything goes for a toss. And in a minute, I'm going to show you what happens to our brain and its functioning and our ability to make right decisions when we switch to our emotional mode from our thinking mode. That is why, because judgment transforms our thought into feeling, and feeling means it makes us emotional. And when you're too emotional, you won't be able to decide properly. That's why it is always important, even in any situation, when you're overcome with a lot of sorrow, lot of anxiety, or lot of anger, what would your friends or your well-wishers say? Just calm down, just calm down. It's okay. We can handle it. Just calm down. Because that process of calming down will shift your thinking or your brain from emotional mode to thinking mode. And what does this pre-introspection do to our brain and body? When I move to the balcony, when I switch off the projector, when I sit on a blameless chair and relax myself, when I perform this pre-introspection ritual, what happens to my brain and body? Let's explore that. All these aspects, if you see, all these three, going to balcony, switching off my projector, sitting on a blameless chair, that is becoming non-judgmental. Have you seen that they reduce the speed of my thinking and they reduce the amount of my thinking? That's very, very important. My thoughts become slow and my thoughts become less. And that is essential, because when I am excited, when I am emotional, sympathetic nervous system gets activated in my brain. And the sympathetic nervous system is what we call generates fight or flight response. When we undergo through stress, when we feel anxious, when we get emotional, sympathetic nervous system gets activated. But when I go to the balcony, when I switch off my projector, and when I sit on a blameless chair, that is when I get into non-judgmental awareness mode, the other one, that is the parasympathetic nervous system gets activated. If sympathetic nervous system excites me, parasympathetic nervous system relaxes me. And That is what we call as relaxation response. The brain and body start generating relaxation response when we activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Body and brain have the capability to generate both stress and relaxation. And the switch is in our hands, as we saw yesterday. So relaxation response is opposite of stress response, and it is also called as rest and digest. The way we call stress response as fight or flight, we call the relaxation response as rest and digest. And when we activate our parasympathetic nervous system, when we become non-judgmental, when we detach from the situation, it decreases our blood pressure, it decreases our heart rate, it decreases muscle tension, and it improves immunity. Whatever negative impacts that the stress creates on our body and mind, relaxation response neutralizes that negativity. Very important. So relaxation response improves immunity, and that relaxation response also increases our sense of well-being. So each time you are sitting in meditation, each time you are consciously relaxing yourself, you are activating your parasympathetic nervous system. And when you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, these are all the things that happen inside your body. And what happens inside the brain? And for those of you who are interested, from which published paper did I take this? It's written, the reference is written in below. So this is a picture of the brain, and this is the prefrontal cortex. That is this part of our brain, which helps us in performing all these actions. Abstract thinking, reality testing, error monitoring, top-down guidance of attention and thought, inhibition of inappropriate actions, regulating emotions, all these are done by prefrontal cortex when I am alert and I am in non-stress conditions. Very important. Amy Ernston is a researcher who researches on the functioning of prefrontal cortex at Yale School of Medicine. And this is a paper that she published, a very insightful and interesting paper in 2009, which is where I took this picture from. So when you are relaxed, why should we become non-judgmental? Why should we relax? I am getting emotional, Bala, but do you think I should not get angry? Do you think I should not feel sad? That's not the point. In the situation, the sooner you relax, the sooner will your thinking mind come online. Because when you are emotional, amygdala is our emotional center. When you are emotional, do you see that prefrontal cortex loses its ability to control rest of the activities that we saw here? When I am non-stressed, when I am in my thinking mode, when I am relaxed, my prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of my decision making, is online. That is the neurological setup that is required to make me right decision is available to me. But when I am excited, when I am too emotional, when I get carried away in my emotions, PFC goes offline. That is prefrontal cortex goes offline. That is my ability to make decisions in that situation gets impaired. That is why so many of us, when we are angry and then we shout at somebody, a little later we sit and regret. Because when you relax, this is what happens. That is after the situation has passed. But during that situation, if you get carried away with your emotions, this is what happens, because your ability to think clearly is gone offline. And what Rajyoga meditation teaches us is how can we bounce back to our relaxed state? How fast can we come back so that our pain does not become suffering? Because pain is compulsory, because that is what we all experience as human beings, whether physical or emotional pain. But suffering is optional, because suffering is self-generated. So the sooner you understand this game that our own mind is playing, and the more you practice this detachment and non-judgmental awareness, even in the midst of the situation, you will not lose your control. That is how meditation helps you to become better at controlling your emotions. And that is why our age-old wisdom. This is the science. And what does our age-old wisdom tell us? And now you see here how emotion is becoming the on-off switch for our executive functioning. When I am alert and non-emotional and relaxed, this is how my brain is. But when I'm emotional, amygdala takes control and my ability to think clearly goes offline. And that's why our age-old wisdom says, don't reply when you are angry. Now you know the neuroscience behind it. And the next one, don't decide when you are sad. And the last one, very interesting, don't promise when you're happy. And you must have seen quite a few examples from our itihasas and puranas and stories that if the king is somebody whose ego can be elated by his subjects praising him, then when he becomes so happy, he promises something which he would later regret. So we have those examples, and even from our own life. So don't reply when you're angry, don't decide when you're sad, and don't promise when you're happy. So when you perform this pre-introspection ritual, it improves clarity, as you saw. And if this was our mind in the middle of the situation or just before introspection, when we perform the pre-introspection ritual, slowly our mind starts clearing. And with practice, within few minutes, it can actually become like this. Do you see that? If these are the facts and this water is my mind, when the mind is relaxed, when it is calm, the facts get reflected properly. Don't worry about the upside down part of it. Just don't go into too much detail. Don't think too much. Just try to understand the essence. The reflection is clear. But when I am making a lot of thoughts, when I'm emotional, my mind is muddled and that does not reflect the facts accurately. When the facts are reflected accurately, my ability to make the decision increases and I'm able to make much better decisions. And the best way to detach yourself from the situation and become non-judgmental is, this is where the beauty and the simplicity of Rajyoga comes in. You become soul conscious. And this is one of the reasons why I continue to practice Rajyoga for more than a quarter century, because the principles are very, very profound, yet very simple. So the best way to detach yourself from the situation and become non-judgmental is become soul conscious. Because when you become soul consciousness increases your inner resilience, because you move from a position of weakness to a position of strength. And it improves your psychological immunity, because a lot of waste and negative thoughts that reduce my psychological immunity, that increase my anxiety, they subside when I start becoming soul conscious. As we move forward, tomorrow and day after, I'm going to discuss a lot more detail about soul consciousness and how that can be translated into our day-to-day life. So for today, understand that when I detach myself from the situation, when I sit in this self-sovereign throne of soul consciousness, of the soul, through this soul consciousness, it becomes easy for me to withdraw. And when I withdraw, my thoughts become slower and my thoughts become lesser. And that's what increases my inner resilience, and that's what increases my psychological immunity. And once you become soul conscious, then start gathering the facts. Because now, when you're body conscious, when you're emotional, your thinking narrows. When you are soul conscious, when you are relaxed, your thinking expands. Very important. And that is the science behind this. Because when your thinking expands, you are able to see the big picture. Most of us professionals, we keep breaking our head. Yaar, ye big picture dekhta kyun nahi? Why are you only focused on looking at your perspective? Why don't you look at others' perspective? So many times as managers and leaders, we break our head during our conversations or conflict resolution because we say, look at the big picture, zoom out. How do we do that? We don't get the answer. And here is a very beautiful tool. Become soul conscious, withdraw yourself. Then your vision expands, and then you will be able to zoom out easily. So, from that position of height, gather the facts, and then you start analyzing them. Because now you are no longer emotional. You're able to see the facts. Now your analysis becomes more solution focused rather than problem focused. Because if you are emotional, your analysis is only problem focused. But when you are relaxed, your analysis of the same facts becomes solution focused. And once you analyze from the position of strength, decide and design next steps. Because the neural real estate required to make appropriate decisions is available, is online, you will be able to decide better and design the next steps appropriately. So that is the process of introspection. And then make a note, very important. Our working memory is very small. We cannot handle too many thoughts in our mind at the same time. Use a pen and a paper, very simple way. So make note of all the action items, and then post introspection, start implementing those action items and make a note and follow up. So now, for those of you who have tried introspection and it did not work, you can see why it did not work from this conversation. Because we are never taught about performing the pre-introspection ritual. For any conversation, even when you're going to have your performance review with your boss or with your team member, get into that mode of non-judgmental awareness. Perform that pre-introspection ritual. Make sure that you are on the balcony, not on the dance floor. Make sure you switch off your projector, and make sure you you sit on the blameless chair, and then start the conversation. And then see the quality of the conversation and the quality of decisions you make. Because when you become soul conscious, when you become non-judgmental, your focus shifts from who did it to what needs to be fixed. Because this is more important, not this one. Because when I start focusing on the who, I start hurting their ego. And once my ego hurts, once I get into emotional mode, you saw that. Their ability to think clearly goes offline, and how much ever you tell them, they won't listen. Because their prefrontal cortex has already gone offline. So the summary, first, relax. Very important. Any activity that you are doing, relax yourself. Make yourself non-judgmentally aware. Bring yourself into that state of Sakshi Drashta Sthiti. Detach. Let go of your own fears and anxiety, because as you start practicing this meditation of becoming Sakshi Drashta, as you start practicing soul consciousness, letting go of little things that bother us becomes easier and easier. Then start looking at the facts and start having this positive self-talk with yourself. What is self-talk? How to have positive self-talk? We will explore in detail tomorrow. So don't forget to join us again. And bring up that blameless attitude. That is what we call as self-compassion. And when we show it to others, we call it as compassion. We become critical with ourselves because we blame us a lot of times, or every time something goes wrong. Don't blame. Focus on the task that needs to be fixed, not on blaming yourself. So sit on the blameless chair and emerge your self-compassion. And of course, allow the time to take its course. That's why it is said, time is the greatest healer. Give yourself that time. Don't be too harsh on yourself. That's why if you recall the 5 P's, the 4th P that we talked about was patience. Not only love, we talked about pyar, we talked about positive self-reflection. We also talked about patience. Give yourself that time. It's very important. Don't be too critical. And this is what we call as self-reflection. And this is another name for meditation. Yesterday or day before, somebody was asking, how is mindfulness different from Rajyoga meditation or any other meditation? In mindfulness, you are only asked to observe your thoughts and detach, but you are not given the spiritual underpinnings of how to do it and why you should do it. Now that's the beauty of the Rajyoga meditation or the Eastern methods of contemplation, because we have solid spiritual foundation. And for those of you who are interested, I would encourage you to read this book called Science of Meditation by Daniel Goleman, which he released a couple of years ago. And he acknowledges that in 1970s, when he and his friends visited India, started learning the Buddhist meditation, they removed all the cultural underpinnings or the spiritual components of the Buddhist meditation, made it bare bones, called it mindfulness, and took it to the West. And for us, born and brought up in India, we don't have to strip off our cultural or spiritual foundations or underpinnings and try to go after just the bare bone structure. We have very beautiful, very profound spiritual foundations which we can start harnessing. And that's what Rajyoga helps us to do. So let's sit back, relax, and do a few minutes of reflection, a few minutes of meditation before we get into Q&A. And my request is, whenever you're asking questions, please direct your questions to Krati Ben, BK Krati, because she will be moderating those. Do not send your questions directly to me. Thank you. Just sit back, relax, sit straight, have your both feet firmly on the ground. Take a deep breath.
Om Shanti. We will now experiment with the 3rd exercise, the discovery of the inner being. Sitting quietly, my body calm, relaxed, and still. I turn inwards. I know that my eternal identity is not of my physical costume. My physical body is simply an instrument that I use at this moment For a little while, I would like to find out more about the being that is actually operating this physical instrument. In the quietness, I can feel the source of life shining, radiating light in the center of my forehead. I come back to the identity of my eternal self. This is who I am. And no matter how my body may change, no matter how the circumstances of life may change, no matter how relationships change, or even how the world changes, I am eternally a being of light within all the changing factors of the universe. I am constant. I am a point of light with peace, with love within my own being. I am the source of life itself. Turning inwards, and discovering myself, I realize how I had become a stranger to myself. I had forgotten myself, and so I had not been able to love myself. And now, discovering myself, I begin to make friends with myself. I acknowledge the value of my own existence, the beauty of my own being. And in this recognition, I once more begin to love myself and respect myself.
Gently bring your focus back to the session. Those of you who are closing your eyes, gently open your eyes. So we changed the URL because some of you had some security concerns with tiny URL. So we moved the content from there to bkitving.org/Rajyoga. If you go there, you will see all the resources, which for those of you who just joined today, the guided relaxation commentaries we are using, and the relaxation music, just the instrumental music. Or if you want to read any published literature about the benefits of meditation and what research has been happening, you can use the third folder. Good. So that gives us a few minutes of Q&A time. Let me stop sharing. And over to you, Kratiben.
So thank you, Bala Bhai, for such an insightful session. I have received few questions till now. I would ask everybody to please start sending their questions. Meanwhile, first question is, Bala Bhai, how to switch off the mental projector?
It's a process, because if your thinking is not based on facts, then it is a projector. Is there any data to support my wild conjectures? The more we start asking that question, the more we will start turning down the projector. Just because I keep thinking does not mean it is true. Correct? Is my fear based on data? Is a good question to start asking. Because anxiety is a creation of my mind, and in our own life, it is important that when we start meditating and reflecting, we should continuously ask, how many times did I foresee doomsday as a part of my life, and how many times it passed and I'm still alive? You know, this reminds me of what Mark Twain, the famous writer, he quipped once. He said, my life is filled with many mishaps or many difficult things which never happened. Because I create them. So this meditation, this detachment, and this understanding that I am eternal, and experiencing and getting into that soul consciousness, starts dialing down that anxiety.
Okay, Bala Bhai, there is another question. Sorry, would you want to continue?
Now, please.
Okay, there is a question. Is extra positivity harmful?
Very good question.
Yeah.
That is why I kept repeating that pain will always be there. Pain is mandatory. Suffering is optional. And when you become too positive, you start ignoring the pain. Our intention is not to ignore the pain. You have fever and it is not coming down even after 2 days. And you start giving positive affirmations. My fever will go away. My fever will go away. I am positive. I am positive. That is dumb positivity. Positivity means, yes, it's happened 2 days. Fever is not coming down. Let me approach the doctor. And at the same time, let me not get anxious. Let my doctor decide based on my symptoms what exactly is the problem. Let me not create a lot of negative thoughts. That reality is positive thinking, because you are more rooted. And whenever you are approaching a task, if you have to prepare, you need to prepare. You cannot say, I will succeed, I'm positive, I'm capable, but you don't do the necessary hard work. It's important that you do the hard work and not allow your negative thoughts to take away your confidence. That is why I have a complaint with these movies like The Secret. The problem is they romanticize this concept of positive thinking and visualization to such an extent that they start demeaning the hard work that needs to go along with visualization. That's why I have a simple equation. Visualization minus hard work is wishful thinking. We will revisit this in the next few days, this concept of visualization and the science behind it. Visualization minus hard work is wishful thinking. Visualization plus hard work is equal to success. So remember that. If you remember this equation, you will never get carried away with too much of positive thinking. And yes, too much of irrational positive thinking is bad, but too much of rational positive thinking is good.
There's one more question, Balabhai. If people are jealous of my fitness progress, then how can I deal with that situation? People includes my close family members and colleagues, please.
So whoever has asked that, continue to focus on your fitness, simply ignore. If you detach yourself, then as you correctly saw, that you might be thinking that they are jealous of you. No, they are not jealous of you. They are taking the umbrage of jealousy so that they can get away from their responsibility of making themselves fit. So be more compassionate. Help them if you can of what is it that you sacrifice and what is it that you focus and how you use the discipline to become fit. So become more and more compassionate, and you don't have to take their jealousy seriously. Ignore and move on. Very important, even if it is your close family members. Because
Wonderful.
as I said on the first day, do not try to control things that are not in your control. That is the definition of stress. Focus on what you can control. This clarity. My desire to control things that I cannot control is body consciousness. My realization that I will focus on what I can control and I will try to influence what I cannot control is soul consciousness. So become soul conscious and look at them as another soul. Last question, Kratiben, because we just have only 3 more minutes. Yes.
Yeah. If data is supporting my thinking, then what about my negative perception?
You have to change it, because if data is showing, see, again, if data is supporting it, it means there is an issue. You have to fix it. So go ahead, start working towards the solution. But when you continue to think negatively, that negative thinking is not actually helping you. Become aware of the negativity in the situation and what needs to be fixed. But do not inculcate that negativity inside yourself such that it overwhelms you. That's the big difference. That's where the non-judgmental awareness comes from. When I'm looking at the facts, if the facts themselves are negative, that means something is wrong. There is a loss. Fix it. Focus on the solution. Don't try to gloss over it. That is, if I take the same example, if my fever is 102, 102 is not good. And if you consider that not good as negative, so be it. But do not allow that negativity to overwhelm you. Yes, I should not have 102 fever. It's there for a couple of days. I must fix it. Let me approach my doctor. So this is not negative thinking. This is you becoming aware of what's negative in the situation. And typically I use a different labels, different nomenclature, which might help you. Instead of calling it negative, positive, right, wrong, it's useful to start using optimal and suboptimal. Because that judgmental stuff of positive and negative, it immediately makes us emotional and it doesn't allow us to think clearly. And I had to use those because that is the conditioning and that is the vocabulary we all understand. But from here on, we can start calling it as optimal and suboptimal. Even in tomorrow's session, when we talk about positive self-talk and negative self-talk, I just use the label just so that we can relate, because we relate to it much better. Okay.
Okay. Before we switch off, Balabhai, I would like all of us to take a moment to refer to the chat box for the
Yeah.
feedback link.
Yes.
There is a feedback link named as bkitiving.org/feedback. Please refer your chat box for the link and please provide your feedback. That would be all. Thank you all for joining the session.